All right, so I'm going to bring you behind our closed doors just for a minute, George. We were talking a lot here at CNBC about is there enough energy here in the U.S. to power just the massive scale of data centers that we keep hearing these related to these announcements? Currently today, and the trajectory that we're on, is there enough power right now just in the existing grid?
The short answer is no. I mean, we've written a series of notes called Something's Gotta Give, where we voice significant concerns around all the compute being purchased by some of the companies that you mentioned previously, that there's not enough energy to fulfill all the demand. And it's showing up in electricity prices, for example. Electricity prices across the country have increased for a variety of reasons, one of which is the fact that AI data centers are needing more power to increase the compute that they need to, to feed all the ambitions of the data center companies.
So should this make us question just the possibility of some of these data centers being up and operational? I'm looking at your research. We're going to talk about this in a second, but you talk about in China, well, here in the U.S., we've kind of taken a pullback when it comes to nuclear energy, and we have a lot of concerns, whether they be environmental or safety. In China, they just really press forward. And you say in China with pretty, I guess, friendly regulation. Tell me if that's a fair way to characterize it. You say the average construction of a reactor is 5.7 years. Does that mean it would take longer here in the U.S.? And what does that mean about our ability to meet the demands for power that these AI data centers are just creating?
It takes a long time to put new reactors online. It also takes a long time to put natural gas online. I mean, significant amount of companies in the supply chain have talked about significant bottlenecks to bring natural gas online. So if you look at what we need as a country, what's going to fill the gap if the ambitions are going to be filled from the data center companies, more solar power, more batteries, maybe even more wind. And so the issue is that to fulfill the demand, the energy sources that the companies have talked about are going to take 5 to 10 years to bring online. So in the near term, there are companies like Fluence, for example, that build energy storage systems that are going to be put in place to build what's called bridge power. Other companies across the supply chain can bring that on as well. But the natural gas or even the nuclear that we need online is going to take years.
Okay.
And if you look at the data center ambitions, they need the power immediately.
I understand you want to give a range, George, but if you're saying it takes 5.7 years for a Chinese reactor to get up and running, does that mean it takes at least as long for a U.S. one to get up and running? Or does it just naturally take more because we have, just a more of a regulatory regime here, I would think?
Well, the Trump administration and the Biden administration before that are trying to ease the regulatory bottlenecks, but it still takes a long time. Some of the nuclear companies are talking about end of the decade into the 2030s, and those ambitions may prove, pretty significant. I mean, we'll see if they can get through that. But that's what you've seen from the Trump administration, for example, easing the regulatory burden from bringing new reactors online, fulfilling the supply chain ambitions through things like uranium stockpile, bringing enrichment to the United States. These are all things that we're trying to do to accelerate that process.
Okay. So you're saying the Trump administration is trying to ease some of the regulations and make it a bit easier. But I also want to ask you about the cost. Now, I want to get to this data that you actually gave us. The cost to build a U.S. reactor based on how much it costs per $1,000 or 1,000 hours, of kilowatt hours compared to what it costs in China. It's significantly higher here in the U.S. Is that going to be restrictive to this build out? Is that going to create a logjam? A headwind? I mean, talk to me about just the cost here in the U.S. compared to China. What does that really mean?
It very much could create a logjam. And what we're trying to do is bring small modular reactors into the United States. And what those promise to do is bring significant scale to the process. We have what's called first of a kind. Right? So when you build your first reactor, the cost is significantly higher. And then as you learn to manufacture them, you get something called nth of a kind. So you bring scale economics into the process that should reduce the cost. But the issue is that's all theoretical at this point in time. We hope that that'll happen.
Okay.
And as you get a lot of these reactors approved and then built out, so that those costs should come down over time. But again, that's theoretical. So we're all hoping this happens by bringing new processes into the manufacturing of nuclear reactors.
George, we got to go, but can we just bottom line? It's great to have this conversation, but for investors, what does that say about these either SMR stocks or just the broader uranium stocks? Are these wise investments right now, considering some of the questions going forward?
Look, the administration and the world is pushing towards nuclear power. So for those with long-term investment horizons, sure, but should expect volatility. In the near term, we do have this bridge power that we talked about. So there are plenty of ways to invest in that bridge power in the United States, including companies like Fluence or Ameresco that are putting batteries on the grid, that are putting solar on the grid. But nuclear promises to be a significant part of our mix. You just have to be long term in nature and wait it out.